Okay, let's unpack this. We often talk about the human body as this incredible self-regulating machine, right?
Mm-hmm. A high-performance vehicle.
Exactly. Like, it's wired to give us warning lights when something's wrong. You get a fever, you know you have an infection.
You feel sharp pain when you twist an ankle.
Hmm.
It's immediate feedback.
You get hungry when you need fuel. I mean, we are trained basically from the moment we are born to listen to our bodies, to trust what our senses are telling us.
It's the foundational rule of survival, isn't it? If it hurts, stop doing it. If it feels fine, keep going. We rely on that feedback loop entirely.
Entirely. But here's where it gets really interesting and honestly a little bit terrifying.
Uh-oh.
What happens when the machine decides to lie to you?
That is a very unsettling thought to start with.
It is, isn't it? But that is exactly what we're diving into today. We are looking at a scenario where your body's most trusted sensor, your eyes can look you in the mirror and tell you everything is perfectly fine, high definition, 4K clarity.
While a disaster is unfolding right behind the scenes.
Exactly. We are doing a deep dive into a source text titled The Silent Leak: Understanding Early Diabetic Retinopathy.
And this is such a crucial document. It's essentially an educational piece, designed to raise awareness about vision loss, specifically in the context of diabetes.
Right.
But what I love about this source material, what really makes it stand out, is that it doesn't read like a dry medical textbook at all.
Not at all.
It uses narrative and some incredibly vivid home improvement analogies to explain a very complex biological process.
Exactly. It's got stories, it's got metaphors about drywall and plumbing. It really does make the invisible visible.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission today is to uncover why human vision is, as the text calls it, a liar. We're going to unpack the story of a character named Ahmed, who is going to feel very familiar to a lot of us, I think.
Oh, definitely.
And we're going to break down the mechanics of the eye using these analogies.
Before we get too deep into the plumbing of the eye, though, we should probably pause for a second.
On the nature of this discussion.
Right.
Good call. So, just a quick disclaimer note here at the top. The source material makes it very clear, and we want to echo this. We are analyzing educational content here.
This is for awareness, for understanding.
This deep dive is not professional medical advice. We are podcasters, not ophthalmologists.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If anything we discuss today rings a bell, or if you have any concerns about your vision or your diabetes management, the only right move is to go see a professional, an ophthalmologist.
That's the bottom line. We are here to explore the ideas in the text, not to diagnose anyone.
Okay, with that out of the way.
All right, with that said, let's jump right in. I want to start with the character the source introduces us to. Let's meet Ahmed.
Ahmed is a fascinating case study because he represents a very specific and very common archetype. The source tells us he's a taxi driver.
Which is such a crucial detail, right? I mean, think about what a taxi driver does all day.
Constant visual input.
His eyes aren't just for looking at sunsets, they are his livelihood. He drives every day. He's scanning for passengers, checking mirrors, reading GPS screens, looking out for pedestrians.
His entire economic existence relies on his vision. So you would think, logically, that someone in his position would be hyper-aware of his eye health.
You'd think he'd be the guy getting checked every 6 months, no questions asked.
But he isn't. And that's the hook, isn't it?
That is the hook. The text establishes his baseline immediately. Ahmed feels fine, he sees fine, he drives his taxi every single day without glasses.
He is, from his perspective, functioning at 100%.
And this is where we get into the psychology of it. His doctor has told him his blood sugar is a little high.
And that phrase, a little high, is so interesting. It sounds so manageable.
It does. It doesn't sound like a crisis.
No, it sounds like, oh, okay, maybe I should cut back on soda, or I'll have one less slice of cake. It doesn't scream imminent danger.
Right. It sounds like a lifestyle suggestion, not a medical emergency. And so Ahmed has this internal logic that I think most of us are guilty of at some point. He thinks, if I can see the road, my eyes are okay.
It's the reliance on functional feedback. We judge the health of the system by the output of the system.
That's a great way to put it.
If the car drives straight, the engine must be fine. If I can read the street signs, my retinas must be healthy. It's a very human, very logical seeming assumption.
But it's a trap.
It is a massive trap.
Because based on this logic, I see fine, so I am fine. Ahmed makes a decision. And this is the turning point in the narrative. He skips his eye appointment. And not just once, he skips it for 3 years.
3 years. That is a long, long time in the context of a progressive condition.
It's an eternity.
And you have to sympathize with him,
Yeah.
on some level. Medical appointments are time-consuming, they can be expensive, they can be stressful.
Of course.
If your internal check engine light isn't on, why would you take the car to the mechanic? It feels like a waste of time and money you might not have.
Exactly. He's prioritizing his lived experience over the medical data. He feels normal. His reality is, I am a healthy guy who drives a taxi.
And the doctor's reality is, you have a risk factor.
And Ahmed chooses his reality. He chooses the one that feels true in the moment.
Which is what we all do. We trust our senses above almost anything else.
But then the source material introduces the conflict. The bubble bursts. Tell us about the moment the symptom finally appears.
Well, and this is what makes it so insidious. It's subtle. It's not like he woke up one morning and was blind.
Right, it's not a sudden event.
Not at all. The text describes it as him having to squint to read the taximeter. Just a little bit.
Squinting to read the meter, that's such a mundane thing. We've all done that.
We have. Maybe the sun is in your eyes, maybe the font is small, maybe you didn't sleep well. There are a dozen perfectly normal explanations for that.
And so that's what he does, right? He rationalizes it.
Exactly. He doesn't think, oh no, my retina is bleeding. He thinks, man, I've been driving for 10 hours. I'm tired. The meter's probably just dusty.
He attributes it to fatigue. He finds a benign explanation.
Right. He fits the symptom into his existing worldview, where he is a healthy person who is just working hard. He makes it fit the narrative he's been living.
But the source text tells us the grim reality. By the time he's squinting at that meter, a disaster has been unfolding inside his eye for months, maybe even years. This brings us to the theme the source uses for this section. I love this. The frog in the pot.
Oh, the classic boiling frog analogy.
Yeah.
It's such a perfect fit here.
For anyone who hasn't heard it, or maybe just needs a refresher on how it applies here, lay it out for us. Why does the text label Ahmed's story as the frog in the pot?
So the premise of the metaphor, and whether it's biologically accurate is beside the point, is that if you throw a frog into a pot of already boiling water, it jumps out immediately.
Right. It feels the intense, sudden change.
It recognizes the danger because the contrast is sharp. It goes from cool air to scalding water in a split second. The nervous system screams danger, and the survival instinct kicks in. Get out now.
Acute pain causes an acute reaction. That makes sense.
Exactly. But the other side of the analogy is if you put a frog in a pot of tepid, comfortable water and then you slowly, gradually turn up the heat.
It doesn't notice.
It doesn't notice. The frog just kind of chills out, acclimatizing to the gradual increase in heat, degree by degree. The change is so slow that it never triggers the alarm. And before it knows it, it's too late. It boils.
And Ahmed is the frog.
Ahmed is absolutely the frog. The sugar levels in his blood were the heat, turning up slowly, imperceptibly over those 3 years.
And the water is his body, his eyes.
Yes. The damage was happening so gradual that his brain just adjusted to it. Our brains are incredible at compensating. He didn't notice the tiny loss of contrast or the tiny blind spots that might have been forming in his periphery or the slight blur.
Because it wasn't one big change. It was 1,000 tiny ones.
Exactly. Until it finally crossed a threshold where he physically couldn't read the meter anymore without effort. That was the moment the water hit a boil for him.
It's the danger of the gradual. We are wired to react to sudden threats. A tiger jumping out of a bush, we react.
Instantly.
A car swerving into our lane, we react. A slow, creeping cellular breakdown, we sleep right through it.
Exactly. Our evolutionary survival mechanisms are great for acute danger, but they are terrible for chronic, silent progression. We are not built to detect the slow erosion of our own bodies.
And that leads us directly to the core thesis of this source material, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah, let's get to that. Because the source drops a really bold, really provocative statement here. It says, diabetic retinopathy is a liar.
I love that personification. Calling a disease a liar, it gives it an agency, a malevolence that really drives the point home.
It's aggressive, but it's effective. So what does it mean? How is the disease lying to us?
It's lying by omission. It's withholding the most critical information. Ahmed made the mistake of trusting his vision to tell him the truth about his eye health.
He used his eyesight as a report card.
He did. He treated his vision like a dashboard that would light up with a big red warning if something was wrong. But the disease, it creates a disconnect.
A disconnect between perception and reality.
Precisely. On one side, you have perception. I see the road clearly. I can read the signs. I passed the vision test at the DMV.
Right. All the functional tests are passing with flying colors.
And on the other side, you have biological reality. The tiny blood vessels in my retina are becoming weak. They're bulging, they're starting to leak fluid and blood.
And those two things can exist at the same time.
That's the terrifying part. They can coexist for a long time. You can have 20/20 vision and have severe background retinopathy simultaneously.
That is the part that is so hard to wrap your head around. We equate seeing well with healthy eyes. It feels like A equals B. It's a direct correlation in our minds.
And that is the dangerous metric. If you use quality of vision as your yardstick for eye health when you have diabetes, you are using a broken compass. It will point north long after you've started drifting south.
Wow, a broken compass. That's a great way to think about it.
By the time your vision drops, by the time the compass finally spins, you have already missed the window of early prevention. The liar has already done the damage.
So Ahmed was waiting for a signal that the disease was never going to send,
Yeah.
not until it was too late.
Exactly. He was waiting for the fire alarm. But the source text basically implies the house was being eaten by termites. There's no smoke until the roof collapses.
Okay, that is a perfect segue. I want to get into the how of this, the mechanics, because the source material uses some really specific home improvement analogies to explain what was happening inside Ahmed's eye. And honestly, I'll never look at wallpaper the same way again.
The wallpaper analogy is brilliant. It's so effective because it takes this complex anatomical structure, the retina, which is this, mysterious thing for most of us,
Totally.
and it turns it into something we all understand. We've all seen wallpaper. We've all seen a wall. It grounds the concept in everyday reality.
So let's deconstruct the anatomy using this analogy. The source says to visualize the retina as the wallpaper at the back of your eye.
Right. So imagine you're standing in a room. The back wall is covered in beautiful, intricate wallpaper. In the eye, the retina is a thin layer of light-sensitive tissue that lines the back of the eye, just like that wallpaper.
Okay, so its job is to be the surface that captures the image.
Exactly. It captures light and sends signals to the brain. It's the decorative but also highly functional surface. It's the part you see when you walk into the room.
Okay, but wallpaper doesn't just stick to nothing. There's a wall behind it, a structure.
Correct. And in this analogy, behind that wallpaper, inside the wall itself, runs the infrastructure, the plumbing and the wiring. The source describes this as tiny pipes.
Tiny pipes.
These represent the blood vessels, the delicate network of capillaries that supply oxygen and nutrients to the retina to keep it alive and functioning.
So we have the wallpaper, which is the retina on the surface, and the pipes, the blood vessels, running behind it inside the wall.
Got it. Now here is where the diabetes comes in. The source identifies the trigger as high sugar levels.
The sugar is the villain in this story.
It is. Think of the high sugar in the blood as a kind of corrosive substance running through those pipes, day in and day out.
So it's like pouring a weak acid through your home's plumbing.
That's a pretty good comparison. Over time, that corrosive sugar damages and weakens the walls of the pipes. It makes them brittle and porous.
Porous. That's a bad word when we're talking about plumbing.
Oh, very bad word. Pipes are supposed to be sealed. They're supposed to be a closed system. But because of the constant exposure to high sugar, these tiny vessels start to lose their structural integrity.
And what happens then?
They begin to bulge in places. They balloon out, which medically are called microaneurysms, though the text just sticks to the plumbing metaphor. And eventually, they start to leak.
The silent leak. And what are they leaking?
Fluid, lipids, which are like fatty deposits, and blood.
Okay, so we have leaky pipes behind our wallpaper. This is where it gets critical for Ahmed.
Yes, and this is the drywall implication that explains his situation so perfectly. When a pipe starts leaking slowly behind a wall, what happens to the wallpaper immediately?
Usually, nothing. Not at first, anyway.
Exactly. The water drips into the drywall. The drywall acts like a sponge. It soaks up the moisture. From the outside, standing in the room, the wallpaper looks pristine. You don't see the water yet. You have no idea there's a problem.
And that is the background retinopathy stage.
That is the silent leak.
Okay.
The leakage is happening. The damage is accumulating. The structural failure is occurring. But because it is contained behind the surface or soaked up by the surrounding tissue without hitting the very center of your vision,
The patient sees nothing.
the patient sees nothing. Ahmed is driving his taxi, looking at the road. His vision is sharp and his wallpaper looks fine. But behind it, the drywall is slowly turning to mush.
Wow.
And by the time he notices the squint, by the time he sees a problem, it means the water has soaked all the way through the drywall and is now staining the wallpaper.
The stain is the symptom.
Yes. And in home repair terms, think about the difference in the job. The difference between fixing a small, slow leak you caught early.
Which might just be tightening a nut or replacing a small section of pipe.
Right. Versus fixing a wall where the water has already soaked through the drywall, caused mold to grow, and ruin the expensive wallpaper.
Yeah, one is a simple fix. The other is a major renovation. You're tearing out the whole wall.
Exactly. The scale of the intervention changes dramatically. Because Ahmed waited for the stain, the squint. He waited until the structural damage was extensive.
That is, wow. It really highlights why relying on symptoms is such a gamble. You're betting that the symptom will show up before the damage is permanent.
But the analogy shows that the symptom is a result of extensive damage. It's not the warning sign. It's the sign that the warnings were missed.
It reverses the cause and effect thinking we usually have. We think symptom implies problem starts now.
But in this reality, symptom implies problem has been happening for a long, long time.
So we've got the frog in the pot, we've got the leaky pipes behind the wallpaper. It's a grim picture. But the source material gives us one more analogy, and this one is about the solution.
Yes, this is where it pivots.
Or rather, the diagnostic method. It calls this section the kitchen sink.
This is my favorite part of the source, honestly, because it moves us from here is the terrifying invisible problem to here is the logical, concrete solution.
It gives us some agency back, so paint the picture for us, the household analogy regarding the kitchen sink.
Okay, so we all have that cabinet under the kitchen sink. It's dark. It's usually full of cleaning supplies, maybe an old sponge or two, and we rarely look all the way to the back of it.
It's the out of sight, out of mind zone of the kitchen.
It is. It's the place where we shove the things we don't want to think about. Now, imagine there is a slow leak in the drain trap under that sink. Just a drop every hour. So slow you'd never hear it.
So the scenario is, you don't know the leak is there. Everything looks fine from the outside. You walk into the kitchen, the floor is dry, the sink looks normal. You wash your dishes, you go about your day.
The cabinet doors are closed, you are Ahmed driving the taxi, everything seems fine. But inside that dark cabinet, that slow drip is hitting the wood at the bottom.
And what happens to the wood?
The wood gets damp. Then it gets soggy. Then mold starts to grow. Then the wood begins to rot.
And eventually, if you leave it long enough, the bottom falls out. You put a heavy bottle of bleach in there one day, and the whole thing collapses.
The cabinet collapses.
Yeah.
That is vision loss. That is the permanent, irreversible damage.
So the question the source poses is a really practical one. How do you find a leak under the sink before the rot sets in? Before the cabinet collapses?
You can't wait for the smell of mildew. You can't wait for the water to seep out from under the cabinet doors and onto the kitchen floor.
Because if you wait for that...
The cabinet is already destroyed. The damage is done.
So what's the action? What do you do?
You have to be proactive. You have to physically open the cabinet doors, crouch down, maybe move some of the bottles out of the way, and shine a flashlight inside to look at the pipes.
You have to actively look for a problem that gives you no reason to suspect it exists.
You have to go looking for trouble, in a sense.
Yeah.
'Cause you have to verify the integrity of the system. You have to stop assuming and start verifying.
Okay, so this is the core of the solution. And the source translates this flashlight back into medical terms for us.
The flashlight is the dilated eye exam.
Okay, let's unpack that because it's a specific term. Why the dilated part? Why can't the doctor just look in my eye with a regular light?
This connects back perfectly to the cabinet doors. The pupil, the black center of your eye, is essentially a window into the back of the eye.
Okay.
But naturally, it's a small window, and it reacts to light. If an eye doctor shines a bright light into an undilated eye, what does the pupil do?
It shrinks. It gets tiny.
It constricts. So it's like trying to look through a keyhole into a dark room, and the moment you shine your flashlight toward the keyhole, someone on the other side puts their thumb over it.
You can't see anything, or it's just a sliver.
Exactly. You can only see a tiny slice of the room, a tiny part of the retina. You can't see the corners, you can't see the pipes in the back, you can't see the periphery of the retina, which is often where these leaks start.
So an undilated exam is like peeking through a crack in the door. You might miss the problem entirely.
That's it. Dilation, using those eye drops that make your vision blurry for a few hours, is the equivalent of throwing the cabinet doors wide open.
It props the door open.
It forces the pupil to open up completely and stay open so the doctor can shine that flashlight in and get a wide panoramic view of the entire retina. They can check the wallpaper all the way to the edges. They can see the pipes. They can spot that tiny bead of water, that microaneurysm, long before it turns into a flood.
And the source emphasizes that this exam is the only way to open the cabinet.
That is the critical takeaway. There's no other sensor. You can't feel it. You can't see it in the mirror. You can't tell by how well you read a book or a street sign. The only way to know if those pipes are leaking is to let a professional open the doors and look at them with the right tools.
It really reframes the annoyance of the eye exam, doesn't it? I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of dread the dilation. You can't drive for a bit. You're sensitive to light. It's a hassle. You have to wear those goofy sunglasses afterward.
Of course, it's
Hold on.
inconvenient.
But when you frame it as, do you want to check for rot in the cabinet before it falls apart? It feels a lot more necessary.
It changes it from a chore to a rescue mission. You are rescuing your future vision from a silent threat. You're not just getting your eyes checked. You're performing critical maintenance on an irreplaceable system.
So let's move to the final section here. The source material is very clear about the actionable takeaways. It really wants to define this invisible stage and tell people what to do about it.
Right. It wants to make sure the message isn't just a scary story, but a call to action. So we need to circle back to that term, background retinopathy.
Right.
We mentioned it earlier, but it's worth reiterating. This is the official name for the silent leak. This is the stage where the leak is happening behind the wallpaper, but the vision is perfect.
And the terrifying characteristic, the source says it in quotes, you see nothing.
Nothing wrong, that is. And that is why the source issues a directive. It's not a suggestion, it's a command for anyone with diabetes.
What is that specific call to action?
Do not wait for symptoms. That is the golden rule, printed in bold. Do not wait. And the source specifies a timeline, which I think is so important. It says, book a dilated eye exam this week.
This week, not next month, not when you have free time in the fall, now.
Urgency is key because you don't know how long the pipes have been leaking.
Yeah.
And here is the condition attached to that directive, the part that's hardest for people to accept.
Which is?
Book the exam, even if, and the source would probably say, especially if you see perfectly.
That is the hardest hurdle to clear psychologically. Going to a doctor when you feel great, it feels counterintuitive. It feels like you're wasting their time and your money.
It is counterintuitive to our normal way of thinking. We are conditioned to treat sickness, not to verify health. But in the case of diabetic retinopathy, treating sickness means you are already playing catch-up. You're already in damage control mode.
You're renovating the wall instead of tightening the pipe.
Exactly. Verifying health is the only way to stay ahead of the curve. It's the only way to be proactive.
So let's close the loop on Ahmed. The source uses him as the ultimate cautionary tale.
Poor Ahmed. He represents the what if. He's the fork in the road.
Yeah, talk about that. How could his story have been different?
Well, if Ahmed had ignored his own logic, if he had ignored the fact that he could see the road perfectly, and instead followed the medical protocol of an annual dilated eye exam,
If he had just gone to that appointment he skipped 3 years ago.
the doctor would have opened the cabinet doors. He would have shined the flashlight in, and he would have seen those leaky pipes years before Ahmed ever had to squint at that meter.
They could have spotted the leak when it was just a few drops in the drywall.
Exactly. And at that stage, at the background retinopathy stage, treatments are often much simpler, less invasive, and much more effective at preserving vision. There are laser treatments, there are injections, there are tools to seal the pipes.
They can call the plumber for a small job.
Right. But you can only use them if you know the pipes are broken. Ahmed waited until the cabinet collapsed to call the plumber, and by then the job is much bigger and some of the damage can't be fixed.
It's a tragic story, but a necessary one. It illustrates the cost of relying on our own perception when our perception is the last thing to know there's a problem.
It does. It humbles us. It tells us that our bodies are complex systems that don't always communicate with us in a language we can understand naturally. Sometimes we need translators.
Translators.
We need doctors and technology to translate the biological reality for us because our senses can't always be trusted to do it.
So, looking at the big picture here, we've gone from the frog in the pot, completely unaware of the heat rising. We've looked behind the wallpaper at the leaky pipes causing the hidden damage.
The silent leak itself.
And we've opened the kitchen sink cabinet to check for rot, which is the only way to find the problem early.
It's a journey from ignorance to awareness, from passive victim to active participant in your own health. The silent leak doesn't have to be a disaster. It's only a disaster if it stays silent.
The moment you get that exam, the silence is broken.
You know what you're dealing with, and that's everything.
And knowledge is power. Or in
Yeah.
this case, knowledge is sight.
Absolutely.
This has been a really eye-opening discussion, pun fully intended. But before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. A final thought.
Okay.
We've spent this whole time talking about eyes, about diabetic retinopathy. But this concept of the silent lake, It feels bigger than just this one condition.
It definitely is. It
Hmm.
speaks to the nature of silent systems in general. It's a metaphor for a lot of things.
Right. So here's the thought. If our body's most trusted sensor, our eyes, can lie to us so profoundly about its own health, what other leaks might we be ignoring simply because the cabinet doors are closed?
That is the provocative question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We tend to operate on the principle of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But in biology, and honestly in so many other parts of life, our relationships, our finances, our mental health things often break silently long before they snap loudly. The foundation cracks long before the wall crumbles.
Exactly. We wait for the big explosive fight to finally work on the relationship. We wait for the overdraft notice to finally look at the budget. We wait for the full-blown burnout to finally take a break from work.
We are all guilty of being Ahmed in some area of our lives. We're all driving the taxi thinking, I can see the road, so everything must be fine.
So the challenge for you, the listener, is this. What is your cabinet under the sink? What is that area of your life, health or otherwise, where you've been assuming everything is fine just because you haven't had a major symptom, just because you haven't checked? Maybe it's time to grab the flashlight and open those doors.
Check for the rot before the bottom falls out. It's scary to look, but it's much scarier to find out too late.
Wise words. Thank you for walking us through this, and thank you to the source, the silent leak, for such vivid and powerful imagery.
It was a pleasure. It's a really important text.
And to you, the learner, thanks for diving deep with us. Go book that appointment. We'll see you next time.